If you're over 65, don't ignore these 6 silent symptoms. They could be serious. Early warning signs that often go unnoticed. Have you ever brushed off a small change in your body, telling yourself, it's probably just age, or I'm just tired today? Maybe you felt a little more forgetful lately, or your appetite's changed, but nothing that seemed serious. The truth is, as we get older, our bodies become a little quieter when asking for help. The signs are still there, but they tend to whisper instead of shout. And that's exactly why this conversation is so important. After 65, it's not the big warning signs we should worry about most. It's the little ones that sneak under the radar. The ones we call silent symptoms. These are the gentle nudges your body gives you when something deeper might be going on. And while they're easy to dismiss, ignoring them could mean missing the chance to catch something serious while it's still easy to treat. In this video, we're going to talk about 6 silent symptoms that every senior should be aware of. These aren't meant to scare you, but to empower you. Because the earlier you notice them, the more control you have over your health, your choices, and your future. So let's begin with something that happens so gradually, most people don't even realize it's changed. A sudden shift in your sense of balance. Maybe you've started feeling a bit unsteady when standing up from the couch. Or you catch yourself reaching for the wall when getting out of bed. You might laugh it off as just being a little clumsy, but subtle balance issues can actually be an early sign of problems in the brain or inner ear, or even the first clue of a neurological condition like Parkinson's. Now, I want to be clear, feeling a little off once in a while is normal. But if you're noticing regular wobbles, especially when you haven't had them before, that's something to bring up to your doctor. It doesn't mean something terrible is happening, but it does mean your body is trying to get your attention. And that's worth listening to. While we're talking about subtle changes, let's talk about something many people brush aside: ongoing fatigue. I'm not talking about feeling tired after a long day or needing a nap after gardening. I mean the kind of tired that sticks around even after a full night's sleep. The kind that makes you feel like you're dragging yourself through the day, wondering why even simple things feel so exhausting. This kind of fatigue could point to something more than just getting older. It could be related to thyroid issues, heart disease, anemia, or even early signs of certain cancers. The key difference is duration. If you're feeling wiped out day after day, and there's no clear reason, don't chalk it up to aging alone. Get it checked out. And here's something important to remember. None of these symptoms on their own mean something terrible is happening. But when your body keeps sending the same signal, gently and consistently, that's its way of asking for help. And ignoring that message doesn't make it go away. Let me tell you about Maria, a 68-year-old woman I met during a health workshop. She had been feeling more tired than usual for months, but assumed it was because she had started watching her grandkids more often. It wasn't until her daughter convinced her to see a doctor that they discovered she had a heart rhythm issue that had been silently stressing her body for weeks. A quick visit and a simple change in medication made all the difference. She said she felt like herself again within days. That's the power of paying attention to the little things. Another symptom that tends to slip under the radar is unexpected weight loss. If you've been trying to shed a few pounds, that's one thing. But if the scale is dropping without you changing your eating or exercise habits, especially if your clothes start fitting differently, that's something you should never ignore. Unexplained weight loss can sometimes be linked to problems with your metabolism, your digestive system, or even your immune function. It might signal issues like diabetes, certain infections, or more serious illnesses like cancer. Again, don't panic if your weight shifts a pound or two here and there. That's normal. But if you're losing more than 5 or 10 pounds without trying, that's worth a conversation with your healthcare provider. And while we're at it, let's talk about appetite. If you suddenly realize you're skipping meals or just not interested in food the way you used to be, that could be another silent symptom. Our appetite can be influenced by many things: stress, mood, medications, but persistent loss of appetite can sometimes be your body's way of saying something deeper is going on. It's not just about nutrition either. Eating less often means getting fewer nutrients, which can weaken your immune system, reduce your energy, and make your bones and muscles more vulnerable to injury. And for older adults, this can happen fast. So if you've noticed you're just not as hungry lately, or if food doesn't taste quite the same, it's worth tuning into that. These symptoms, balance changes, fatigue, weight loss, and appetite shifts, might seem unrelated. But they all have one thing in common: they creep in quietly. They don't ring alarm bells. They tap you on the shoulder instead of knocking you over. That's why it's so easy to miss them or brush them aside. But you know your body better than anyone. You know what feels normal for you. And when something feels a little off, even if you can't explain it. And that intuition is something you should never ignore. Let's keep listening. Because there are a couple more subtle symptoms we need to talk about. Ones that show up in ways you might not expect, but could carry a message your body is trying to deliver. Let's continue. So we've talked about how subtle changes like balance problems, constant fatigue, and unexplained weight loss can quietly signal deeper issues in the body. But let's take a closer look at two more symptoms that are just as important and just as easy to overlook if we're not paying attention. Have you ever found yourself struggling to remember the name of someone you've known for years? Or walked into a room and forgotten why you were there again? Now, occasional forgetfulness happens to everyone. It's even normal as we age. But there's a difference between the typical senior moment and memory issues that feel off. Maybe it's happening more frequently. Or maybe it's not just names and grocery lists, but important things like forgetting conversations you had just the day before, or losing track of time in a way that feels unfamiliar. This brings us to another silent symptom, noticeable cognitive changes. These don't have to be dramatic. In fact, early signs of cognitive decline are usually very quiet. A small slip in memory here, a bit of confusion there. You might notice yourself repeating questions or feeling overwhelmed in situations that used to feel easy. And many people blame stress or lack of sleep, and sometimes that's all it is. But when it starts to affect your confidence or daily functioning, it's time to take a closer look. Now, don't panic if you're misplacing your keys or forgetting a name now and then. That's completely normal. What you want to look out for is a pattern, memory lapses that happen more often or seem to interfere with your usual routines. Maybe you're avoiding social events because you're worried about forgetting someone's name. Or you feel anxious about having conversations because you're afraid of losing your train of thought. These can be early indicators of mild cognitive impairment, which can sometimes progress to more serious conditions like Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia. But, and this is important, catching it early makes a huge difference. There are treatments, therapies, and lifestyle changes that can slow progression and help maintain brain function for years. But the key is noticing the signs and speaking up about them, even if they feel small or embarrassing. And here's something I want to remind you. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. You're choosing to take charge of your health, to stay ahead of the curve, and to keep living with clarity and independence. That's powerful. Now let's move to a symptom that shows up in a very different way, but one that many people, especially older adults, tend to brush aside: changes in mood or personality. Maybe you've always been upbeat, social, and easygoing, but lately you just don't feel like yourself. Perhaps you're feeling more irritable, anxious, withdrawn, or even sad for no clear reason. A shift in mood doesn't always mean depression, but persistent changes in how you feel, especially when they come on gradually, can be a red flag for a number of things. It could be a reaction to a medication, a hormonal imbalance, or a sign of chronic inflammation in the body. In some cases, mood changes are even tied to neurological conditions like Parkinson's or early-stage dementia. And I know it can feel strange to bring up feelings with your doctor. But your emotional health is just as important as your physical health, especially as we age. Your mood affects your energy levels, your motivation, your appetite, your sleep, everything. So if you find yourself thinking, "I just don't feel quite right lately," that's worth paying attention to. One viewer wrote in to share her story. Her name is Linda, she's 71, and she said she had started feeling gray a few months after retiring. Not sad exactly, just dull. No energy, no real interest in things. She assumed it was just the adjustment to a slower lifestyle. But when she finally brought it up to her doctor, they discovered she had low B12 levels, a simple fix. A few weeks of supplements and dietary changes, and she felt more like herself than she had in years. All because she spoke up about something that didn't seem serious at first. That's the thing about these silent symptoms. They don't always scream. But when you pause and listen, they can guide you toward a better version of health. And often, the fix is much simpler than we fear. By now, we've explored changes in balance, fatigue, appetite, cognition, and mood. All things that might quietly whisper, "Hey, something's off here." But what ties all these symptoms together is how they make you feel in your own body. Do you feel like yourself? Are you moving through the world with the same confidence, clarity, and ease as before? Or is there a small, persistent shift that just doesn't sit right? That inner awareness, that instinct, you've earned that. You know when something is truly different, even if no one else sees it yet. And your job is not to ignore it. Your job is to honor it, to trust it, and to act on it, even if it's just making a phone call or writing down your symptoms to share at your next appointment. And if that feels hard, if you're someone who doesn't like to bother the doctor or isn't sure how to explain what you're feeling, just start with this. Something feels different, and I don't know why. That's more than enough. That's the start of the conversation that can make all the difference. Now, there's just one more silent symptom we need to talk about. It's one that shows up in the body in a way that many people chalk up to just getting older, but it can actually be a sign of something much deeper. Let's keep going. Let's finish with one more silent symptom that might not sound serious at first, but can quietly point to some of the most critical health issues facing older adults. And that's shortness of breath. Now, I'm not talking about huffing and puffing after climbing a steep hill or running to catch a bus. Everyone gets winded with effort. What I mean is that subtle, creeping breathlessness that shows up during everyday tasks. Maybe you notice it while walking from room to room or when bending down to tie your shoes. You catch yourself needing to pause longer than you used to. Or maybe you're just not breathing as easily, even when you're at rest. This kind of breathlessness isn't always dramatic, but it should never be ignored. Because when your lungs, heart, or even your blood aren't working quite right, one of the first signs your body gives you is a change in how easily you breathe. It could be a sign of heart disease, which is often underdiagnosed in older adults because the symptoms don't always follow the textbook. It could also point to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, or even anemia, where your body isn't getting enough oxygen because your red blood cell count is low. And in some rare cases, it could be an early sign of something like a blood clot or heart failure. But here's what's tricky. Many people over 65 simply assume it's part of getting older. They say, well, of course I can't walk as fast as I used to. Or, I guess I just need more rest these days. And sometimes that's true. But if your breathing has changed, and especially if it's interfering with how you move through your day, that's not just aging. That's your body asking for attention. And like the other symptoms we've talked about, changes in balance, fatigue, weight loss, brain fog, and mood shifts, this one can creep in so slowly you barely notice it, until one day you do. The most important thing I want you to walk away with is this: you know your body. You know you're normal. And when something feels off, even if it seems small, it deserves to be taken seriously. Because the earlier you catch these things, the easier they are to treat or even reverse. None of these symptoms are meant to scare you. Quite the opposite. They're meant to give you back control. To remind you that you are not powerless in the face of aging. In fact, you're more powerful than ever because you have wisdom, experience, and the awareness that only comes from living a full life. And that awareness, that's your superpower. So if something's been nudging at you, if you felt more tired than usual, or noticed you've lost a little weight without meaning to, or you had moments where your brain just doesn't feel as sharp, please don't brush it off. Write it down. Bring it up. Talk to someone you trust. Start the conversation. Even just asking your doctor, is this normal, can open a door to answers you didn't even know you were looking for. And sometimes it's something as simple as adjusting a medication, changing a routine, or adding a vitamin. But no matter the outcome, the key is catching it early. Because when you catch things early, you're not reacting, you're taking charge. Let's take a moment to pause here. Inhale through your nose. Exhale gently through your mouth. That breath is a reminder that you're here, you're present, and you're still in charge of your journey. Now let's briefly bring it all together, without repeating everything, just to reflect on the heart of what we've covered. We've talked about 6 small symptoms that often go unnoticed: balance changes, ongoing fatigue, unexpected weight loss, shifts in memory and mood, and shortness of breath. Each of these on their own might seem easy to ignore. But together, they tell a much bigger story. A story about paying attention, about honoring your body, about trusting your inner wisdom. And here's what I want you to remember. Aging does not mean fading. It means evolving. It means tuning in a little more closely, listening a little more carefully, loving your body a little more deeply. And yes, it means acting on those quiet signals before they grow louder. Because you deserve to feel strong. You deserve to feel clear-headed, energized, steady on your feet, and confident in your health. You've earned that, right? So I encourage you, take what you've heard today and do one small thing with it. Maybe that's writing down a symptom you've been experiencing. Maybe it's making an appointment. Maybe it's just checking in with a loved one and saying, "Hey, have you noticed anything different about me lately?" Those small actions, that's where real health starts. Not with fear, not with waiting, but with awareness and a choice to care for yourself with the same love you've given to others for decades. If this video spoke to you, if it made you think about something you've been feeling or wondering about, I'd love to hear from you. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know if you've experienced any of these symptoms or if there's something you've been meaning to talk to your doctor about. Your story might just inspire someone else to take action too. And if you found this helpful, I invite you to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. We're building a community here, one that believes aging isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of a new chapter full of strength, clarity, and peace of mind. We're here to support you every step of the way, with practical tips, honest conversations, and encouragement that meets you exactly where you are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring for yourself. Thank you for reminding us all that health isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, aware, and willing to grow. Here's to living your best life at every age. Stay curious, stay kind, and above all, stay well.